Can a baby understand that an object still exists when it disappears from sight? Can babies remember things? Can they count? Or can they understand what someone else intends to do? At first, these questions seem impossible to answer. After all, babies can't tell us what they know. They can't describe what they're thinking, they can't answer questionnaires, and they certainly can't sit down for an interview with a psychologist. Yet somehow, scientists have found ways to answer these questions. And that's exactly what makes infant cognition one of the most fascinating areas of psychology. Unlike adults, babies cannot report their thoughts, they cannot describe their memories, they cannot follow complex instructions. Researchers cannot simply ask a 6 month old whether they remember an event or they understand something and expect a verbal answer. So, how do scientists study the minds of babies? The answer begins with a surprisingly simple idea. Researchers cannot directly observe thoughts. Instead, they observe behavior. When babies encounter something new, surprising, interesting, they often behave differently. They tend to look longer or reach toward an object, they may turn their head and even show changes in sucking behavior. As babies grow and become more mobile, they begin exploring their environment through reaching, crawling, grasping, and manipulating objects. These behaviors are not random. They can provide valuable clues about what babies notice, remember, expect, or understand. In other words, researchers treat behavior as evidence of underlying cognitive processes. But behavior alone is not always enough. Modern infant research often combines behavioral measures with neuroscientific tools, such as eye tracking, electroencephalography, and functional near infrared spectroscopy. These methods allow researchers to measure patterns of brain activity while infants feel or interact with the world around them. Now, collecting observations is one thing, but how do researchers actually make sense of them? This is where paradigms come in. A paradigm is a structured way of answering a scientific question. Think of it as a framework that guides how researchers collect evidence and, just as importantly, how they interpret that evidence. In infant cognition research, paradigms refer to carefully designed situations, which allow researchers to infer what babies know from what babies do. Among the most influential of these are looking time methods. And the basic idea behind this method is that if an infant looks longer at one event than the other, researchers ask a very important question. Why? Is the event novel? Is it unexpected? Is it more interesting? Or perhaps is it simply more difficult to process? The answer depends on the scientific question being studied. And over the years, researchers have developed several different paradigms based on this simple but powerful logic of looking behavior. Let's start with one of the simplest and most widely used paradigms in infant cognition: habituation. In habituation studies, infants are repeatedly shown the same stimulus until their visual fixation gradually declines. What does that actually look like? Imagine showing a baby the same toy over and over again. At first, it captures the baby's gaze attention. The baby watches it closely. They're clearly interested. But at the same toy is presented again and again, it slowly becomes familiar, and something interesting happens. The infant begins looking away more often. Their gaze fixation starts decreasing. This gradual decrease in fixation is known as habituation. Researchers interpret habituation as the evidence that the infant has processed or become familiar with a novel stimulus. In other words, the baby isn't looking away because they've lost interest. Rather, the repeated stimulus has become familiar enough that it no longer requires the same level of visual processing. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Once the infant has habituated to the familiar stimulus, researchers change just one thing. They introduce a new stimulus. Imagine that the familiar toy is suddenly replaced with a completely different toy. What do you think happens? If the infant begins looking longer again, this is known as dishabituation. This increase in gaze fixation suggests that the infant has detected a meaningful difference between the familiar stimulus and the new one. In other words, the baby has noticed that something has changed. Another important method is called preferential looking. Unlike habituation, where infants are shown one stimulus repeatedly, preferential looking presents two stimuli at the same time. Researchers then ask a simple question: which one does the infant spend more time looking at? For example, a baby might be shown a simple visual pattern on one side and a more complex pattern on the other. If the infant consistently spends more time looking at one stimulus over the other, Researchers can infer that the infant is able to discriminate between the two by preferring to look at one object over the other. At first glance, this might seem like a very simple idea, but it went on to become one of the foundations of modern infant cognition research. Its origins can be traced back to the early 1960s, the work of psychologist Robert Fantz. He made a remarkably simple but incredibly important observation. Infants do not inspect all the visual stimuli equally. When given a choice, babies often spend more time looking at a certain shape, pattern, and image than other. That single observation changed the way developmental psychologists studied the infant mind because it suggested that looking behavior itself could reveal something about perception and cognition. And ever since, researchers have used preferential looking to investigate a wide range of abilities, including visual perception, face recognition, language development, and even early numerical abilities. But researchers didn't stop there. Eventually, they began asking even more intriguing questions. What if looking behavior reveals more than just preferences? What if it tells us something more about what infants expect to happen? The idea gave rise to another influential paradigm, the violation of expectation paradigm. And here's how it works. First, infants observe a situation that allows them to form an expectation about how a certain event should work. They are then shown one of the two outcomes, either a possible outcome or an impossible outcome. Imagine rolling a ball behind a screen. Normally, we would expect the ball to continue existing even when it's hidden from the view. But now imagine the screen is lowered and the ball has mysteriously disappeared. The infants spend longer looking at these seemingly impossible outcomes. Researchers interpret this longer looking as evidence that the infant's expectation about that event has been violated. In other words, it did not unfold the way infant expected it to. Using the violation of expectation paradigm, researchers have explored questions related to object permanence, physical reasoning, numerical cognition, and social understanding. So, why did the violation of expectation paradigm become so influential? Because it allowed researchers to revisit a bigger question: when do babies develop object permanence? One of the first psychologists to tackle this question was Jean Piaget. Piaget argued that the young infants lacked object permanence, the understanding that objects continue to exist even when they can no longer be seen. His conclusions were largely based on search tasks. The logic was straightforward. If an object was hidden and the infant failed to search for it, this was taken as the evidence that the infant did not yet understand the object still existed. But not everyone agreed with that interpretation. Psychologist Thomas Bauer proposed a different explanation. What if young infants fail these tasks not because they lacked object permanence, but because they lacked motor ability to search successfully? After all, understanding that an object exists and having the physical ability to search for it are two very different things. To investigate this possibility, Bauer developed a number of non search tasks during the 1970s. In one experiment, infants watched an object move back and forth along a track, with the center portion of the track hidden behind a screen. If infants expected the object to continue moving while it was hidden, they should continue visually tracking its movement and anticipate where it would reappear after passing behind the screen. Notice what's different here. Researchers weren't measuring reaching, they weren't measuring searching. Instead, Bauer measured looking behavior. Based on studies such as these, he argued that infants may demonstrate object permanence much earlier than Piaget had proposed. Together, these paradigms have transformed our understanding of infancy. They've allowed researchers to investigate questions that once seemed impossible to answer. Questions about memory, perception, learning, object permanence, and even social understanding. But an important question still remains. When a baby looks longer at something, what does it actually mean? Does longer looking always indicate surprise or novelty, or could it reflect attention, memory, familiarity, or something else entirely? This is where cognition becomes interesting and challenging. Inferences from observed behaviors have transformed developmental psychology, but they have also sparked one of the most important debates in the field. So, in one of the next videos, we will explore that debate in much greater detail by asking even more intriguing questions. Can we really trust looking time studies to tell us what babies know?